Hi, and welcome to another episode of Wine and Wisdom. I'm Thomas Le Hoang, and you're listening to the TL podcast, where knowledge is shared and no one takes themselves too seriously.
Hello again.
Hello.
How
Today
are
we're
you?
doing Roger Federer.
Roger Federer.
Oh,
Okay.
Not Nadal? Damn it.
Today we're Rogering Federer.
Not Nadal. No, we're doing Federer today. So I suppose there's a few reasons that I picked him.
But before we get into that, we
Let's
can't
talk
do that
about
without
your wine.
the wine.
Oh, of course, the wine.
So let's have a look.
Okay.
What is it?
So today I decided to bring a Malbec. It was a recommendation from a friend to mix it up and do something a little bit different. So, you know
Is
how
your friend Darren?
no, it wasn't Darren. He's not my friend. No.
It's not my friend.
That's a joke. It's a joke. So, you know how I like picking my wines off the label. Mm-hmm. So with this one, my pop's name was actually Albert, but he got called Jack. So the fact that it was J Alberto kind of grabbed me to begin with. And also it's a wine from Argentina. I went to a degustation dinner a few years ago actually now, and there was a really nice Argentinian wine. So when I saw this one, I thought, let's give it a crack.
So you're gambling that all Argentinian wines are good?
No, it was just a combination of the label, the name, you know, the suggestion. So
Awesome.
thought we'd go with it.
So where does you go? You start pouring. Someone who knows something about wine, TL, where does Malbec sit in? You know, we've got Cab Sauv and Shiraz and all that. Where does it sit in the order?
Is it? I think in almost every wine there's a bit of Malbec.
Okay.
But because you only put less than
Thank you.
5%, you don't have to write it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And
I think it's a
pure Malbec, mate, you don't see it every day.
a Spanish grape, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's just above a bit above a Pinot,
And
a Merlot.
Argentinian would love this.
I did actually do some research on it, but I forget what it told me. So
This is
cheers.
very nice. She may be the winner.
Of course I am.
Wine got better with age.
No.
No. Only one glass.
So
It's
with
a
this
beautiful
bottle,
Malbec. Beautiful. Yeah.
with this bottle, we're going to be discussing Roger Federer. There was a few reasons that I picked him. I guess I do think he's an amazing tennis player.
Yeah.
Tennis as a sport always interests me because it's such a there's a big team behind that one player, obviously, but once they're out on that court, it is such a one-on-one mental game. So that was another reason for picking him. His humility, I think, is just huge, and the respect that he's got within that realm of sporting is massive. So, yeah, that's pretty much why
He's not bad to look at either.
I wouldn't really.
Oh, should
Yeah,
we go?
rate him.
There you go.
but you know, I know that you love your dancing, and I think that he's one of those tennis players who really seem like he's dancing. You know, the way he does his serve, the way he does his touch on the volley, his beautiful backhand. His
Yeah.
backhand is like a ballet dancer.
He's very
Yeah,
graceful. He's a
he has
graceful
really
player.
Nice
Oh,
style
beautiful.
about him. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a graceful player.
All right. So let's talk it this way. So who knows 5 things that would wow most people about Roger?
I think one of the things I watched quite a few interviews trying to learn about him because I love this segment that we do because I'm learning a lot about people that I would have never spent time in thinking about. But so I watched a lot of interviews. One of the beautiful things I think is he's got this thing called fire and ice that he explains about himself. That when he's on the court, he's on fire internally to drive himself to win the next point, to focus on his tactics for the game.
Yeah.
But externally, he wants to have that ice facade. So he's Mr. Cool under pressure and he keeps his head and so forth. And the wonderful thing is his modesty that he says, that wasn't me when I was younger. He goes, I had to learn that.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, he goes, I was a firecracker. He goes, I would swear and throw my racket and chuck tantrums and all that sort of stuff. But he got to a point in his life, and I think it was when he fell under the guidance of the Australian coach who really pulled him up to his next level. Connor? Peter Connor?
Jimmy Connors?
Peter Carter.
Peter Carter. And it took him to the next level. And the gratitude that he shows as well.
It wasn't until the coach passed that he really
And
took
yeah,
it to the next level.
But I think that fire and ice concept that he explains that he really wants to, keep that fuel burning inside, but the calm exterior, I think it's wonderful. I think I really like that.
I think that's probably going to be the biggest wow for most people. Is I don't know how well known it is that at the moment he's pretty much the antithesis of all the top tennis players. He's not a jerk on the court. He doesn't carry on or do any of that stuff. And I think the biggest wow factor for most people will be that he used to be that person, because now he's the complete opposite and has been for such a long time that he probably cops a bad rap for being a bit boring and a bit not having enough personality, but he used to be the mongrel on the court that the rest of them are. So
I think the one thing about that, though, was that it was never really about his opponent or the umpire or anything like that. It was more he was cranky at himself. That's why he was hitting the Richter, whereas some of these other players...
I think they're all angry at themselves.
They
They just
are.
take it out on whoever's closest. That's, and you can't get to, it's very rare. We talked about in the book about whether greatness can come without pain, but it's very rare for someone to get to the level he got to without having a little bit of craziness about him. So
Yeah, well, that's
a little
right.
bit
That's
of-
true.
A little bit of those idiosyncrasies there, because everyone's got them.
He took the loss with the pain. He took the loss of his coach quite very, very deeply, and very, very deeply. And a couple of the interviews they had with him talking about him, he got very emotional because he looked up to his coach so much. And as you said, Megs, that was one of his main turning points in his career, is when his coach did pass away in a car accident in South Africa, I think it was. His game improved out of sight. And he says it was actually as a bit of an homage to his coach that he knows he needed to do the best to make him proud of what he had taught him. I think it was an absolutely wonderful thing. The other great thing is the fact that when you see him in an interview, he never speaks ill of anyone. And he speaks so highly of his competitors. Even Nadal, they have a fierce rivalry. They're still good mates.
No, but they're real good mates, mate.
But they are. But they've still got this fierce rivalry. He doesn't let that interfere with being a friend. And he says, in the change room with Dokovic and all the other guys that he plays with, he goes, it's fun. It's a great time. He goes, that's one of the best parts about tennis. It's. I think that
It's
humility.
also a
and that-
bloody good tactic if he wants to use it to
He'd
be
drink
everyone's
this.
friend. No, just be everyone's friend. Don't have anyone pissed off at you. And then he goes out onto the court and murders them. So be a good friend. Thanks, buddy.
There was part of that time, though, when he was being, aggro on the court and stuff like that. His parents, I think his parents had they had an expectation of him, and he knew it. I couldn't get a lot about them, but it seemed like, he knew what the expectation was, and he knew he had to deliver what they expected. They didn't have to be hard asses, so to speak, about it, but they stopped talking to him at a point in his career because of how he was acting on the field, on the court.
There you go.
They stopped talking to him and just said, no,
Been there, brother.
pull your head in. And that was around that, not long after that was when the coach passed and
Right.
all of that came about. So
I'm interested. What TL's obviously got a list there. What are the shocking points?
I haven't got a list. No, I think my list it was more like exploits. When I'm listening to you guys done way more research. It's amazing to hear. All that I know was exactly what you said at the beginning. He used to have a very bad temper. However, that place where he used to have bad temper now carries his name.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
It's a funny thing, right?
Yes.
So that you were once a villain, but now we okay having your name here.
Roger Federer centre court. Yeah.
I don't think Hoang Tennis Club's got the Cam Wilson.
The Cameron
shrine,
Wilson
mate.
outhouse.
It's funny. One of the things I read only last night, I was just sort of having another look to see what else I could find about him. But one of the lines that was on one of the articles was that he's got old school stoicism and mental toughness and good sportsmanship. And it was funny because it's not why I picked him, but to see that word that we're talking about here in this podcast in an article about him, I thought, oh, that's really interesting. I don't know what your thoughts were on that, but a lot of his values, I think, align
With the
with
Stoics,
what
yeah.
we've been talking about.
When we do someone, I try and dig up dirt. I
Yeah.
type in and we try and find something. Okay, we always hear the good stuff. Let's try and find some.
Yeah.
I couldn't find any.
Only that he had the temper.
That's the only thing. But he's the first one to admit that. He goes, when I was young, I was a brat. I was a brat.
You think more of it comes about, part of that is, I was thinking about that myself. He's only 39. He's 40.
39.
39. He's a couple of months older than me. He was an 81. I'm an 82. So, yeah. So that dirt will probably, if there's something to be found, maybe later in life after he's retired. It's very. We're talking about a guy who's still at the top, still going. He hasn't retired yet, has he?
A lot of injuries, though.
Yeah,
So
body's starting to.
5-6
But everyone
years,
else-
back injuries, knees.
Everyone
everything.
else we've talked about, we've had at least 50 years or 60 years to dig into, and for stuff to come out about his life, it's very mundane. Your Wikipedia search, Roger, it's all just tennis exploit after tennis exploit. And I said that to you guys before. He doesn't seem to have gone, hasn't got the troubled childhood and all the stuff of all the other people that. And we asked, do you need that pain to be great? But to be great in tennis, you go through a fair bit of pain because the thousands and thousands and thousands of tennis balls you got to hit to get there is pain enough.
But that's where I probably will say now, we just heard something different. He was a great player, but the loss of his
There you go.
mentor gave him a huge hurdle to surmount because I'm sure that there are things that he wish he could have told him before he passed on.
Absolutely.
There were probably some unfinished business that you and we don't know. And in that respect, there's maybe some guilt being carried. And the wrestling with this thing, the confronting of the challenge rather than trying to dance away from it, has now elevated him to 39-year-old.
That's his
still
fuel.
number 8 on the planet. Still beating people, in Grand Slam. It's an amazing thing. 20 Grand Slam. I mean, equal obviously by Nadal, but you look at the guy, he's 39. He's now the oldest player, isn't it?
And at his age, I guess, even in any sport,
It's not a bad age. Can everyone back off the age? It's all right.
professional sport, Cam, we're talking here, like,
No, but for Cam, that would have been 17, right?
I think it was 23 years that he's been sort of at that.
I know how
He was
he
only
feels, yeah.
18 when he first went on to the tournament. So he was one of the youngest to step onto it. And then within, I think it was the first 2 years, he was already number 6 in the world at the time. And now it's 23 years on. He is probably the oldest on the tournament, I would say. But in any sport, at 39, if you're still at sort of in that top level, it says something about the person.
Absolutely.
It says a lot about the person.
One thing I was surprised about, every
steroids.
victory, so this fire and ice concept he had, upon that winning point, almost every victory he'd break down with sort of tears of passion. And you could see the passion and the fuel that he had for the game while he had that ice exterior while he was playing. The minute he won, and it come through on every Grand Slam that he win, and you could see that passion he had for it. It was absolutely fantastic. The research I showed, he's the wealthiest tennis player in the world. $900 million he's worth, almost $1 billion. 130 of that's in prize money.
Yeah.
But he's taken that money and he's got 2 foundations he's set up. Yeah. So his mother was from South Africa, and he spent a lot of his life as a younger man in travelling South Africa, visiting family and friends. So he's opened foundations for children to educate children in South Africa, and he's also done it, I think, in Europe, or it might have been Switzerland or France or somewhere like that. But he's also done. So he's got this foundation, the Roger Federer Foundation, to help people as well. So he's also giving back to the community. So. There's times that you look into someone and you go, man, that's just amazing athlete, amazing person, and just all-round nice guy. There was no dirt really that you could find on him.
I think he was still the highest income earner for an athlete last year.
2020 was $103 million.
$103 million.
$103 million!
He had
Have a loan, mate?
his wife now, but his at the time it was his girlfriend, and she was one of the only ones that was going around on the tour. Like, it was very unusual for tennis players at that age to be bringing partners with them and a steady partner with them. And a few of the things that I read sort of talked about potentially that leading to his discipline and his approach and his
Stability.
He's got 2 sets of twins. So
2 sets of twins. He's set for life, bro. four number 1 tennis players. He's going to be the highest paid sportsman from now until eternity.
I could just see Federer run. Which one?
He's like a good racehorse. They've put him out to stud. He's just whoever.
So let's try and extrapolate on this. He's coming to the end of his career. How do you think he'd feel right now?
Look, from what I saw, there was a few things in a couple of the interviews that I really took out of it. One of the things, when he was younger, he felt he really didn't know who to trust. and he felt he couldn't trust anyone. And he got to a point where he had to learn how to trust and who to trust, the right people to trust. And he goes, I wish I could impart that to the younger players, because the younger players would be going through the same thing I'm going through, where they feel everyone wants to get on their bandwagon and go along for the ride. So I think, looking at the way he presented himself, he would want to give back to the tennis community in maybe helping the younger people understand how their career can take off and the commitment they've got to make and who they've got to have around them.
Like a mentor kind of a role?
That's right.
It doesn't
Not
strike
so
me
much
as
a
a
coach?
he doesn't.
No, I don't think a coach. I think a mentor, that the mind game, because you said it's a bigger mind game than it is a coach game.
Yes.
The other big thing I loved about him, he goes, don't work on your weaknesses. You work on your weaknesses, you'll be a good tennis player. He goes, work on your strengths. He goes, then you're a great tennis player. So I think there's a lot of bits and pieces he can give to these younger tennis players, I think. And that's what he might be looking at
There was one
doing.
of them that was talking about his shots and how he sets things up so far in advance that the average eye wouldn't see, but he's working towards it, and then he just knows when to deliver the right shot. And it reminded me of the Bruce Lee kick. Don't worry about the 10,000 different times. Just worry about that one that you know is your thing. And he's got a few in his arsenal, though. He's not one that just has he's not a one-trick pony by any means. But the class that he delivers.
Passing shot is just out of this world, isn't it?
It'll be interesting to see what he does when he does retire, because he strikes me as the kind of guy who's just going to fade away into his own
You think so?
life. Yeah, I don't see him. I don't see him commentating. I don't see him.
He won't be in a role
at
that's
the
a
front,
look at me
a
kind of
leading
role.
public.
I think Chris is right.
Yeah, I don't think he's.
You want to be a helper.
Is he a leading public figure? Is he a leader as such, or is he just in control
Is he
of?
going to start his own tennis association like Djokovic?
I don't know. No, I don't think so.
I think that the ego's there. There's no ego there for him to have names to it and so forth. And him talking about himself was very minimal of his.
I feel like he goes away and lives his own life.
Yeah.
I feel like you won't see much of him.
No,
once
I
he's
think
gone.
he'll be there. I think he'll be greatly involved behind the scenes, helping younger players to get where they need to be.
Have you
That's
watched
the sort
him
of.
play?
Oh, sorry?
Seen him play live?
Oh, no, not live. No, the closest I came to live is when he came here for his first game, and he stayed at the Grand Sheraton in under the Harbour Bridge, and I just walked past him as he got out of the car. That was his first time out here. I didn't see
No
him.
autograph, mate.
Hey?
No autograph.
Nah, because
Mr. Roger. Mr. Roger.
Apparently, he was down there for hours signing stuff too for him. You have to pull him away. Go. We have to go. No. Crazy.
back in those days, there were no iPhones. I couldn't get a selfie. I was with my brother.
It was a box Browning back
loves
then.
tennis, and I said, mate, if you want a photo, it's here now. He's there.
Let's get the big
He just got
camera
out
and
of
turn
the
it
car.
around.
So from a player's point of view, because that's all we've really got to judge at the moment, what do you think his legacy going to be? Has he changed the game at all? Has he changed the way things have been done? Clearly, no one's following his leaders not being a
I don't think
dickhead.
that he's
because-
changed. I don't think he's changed the game because I think that he's only following Sampras in a lot of ways. You
Yeah,
see
very similar.
Pete Sampras.
Yeah, very similar.
But I see a ballet dancer. He has taken tennis to a different art. You see him doing his backhand 2,000 times. It's the same movement. It's an art. It's an art form. It's exactly the same movement. So this dude, you can throw at him whatever you want. He will find a way of just dancing that ball back to you. And to me, you won't have another one. One that I really love for his serve volley was John McEnroe. So he had that dancing too between his serve and his volley. I reckon Roger is complete, man.
You'd think if there was a lesson to be learned by the other players is you can reach the top without being a goose. But they don't seem to have taken that on board. I don't know.
Now you're talking about something
It's an
else.
age thing, though.
Yeah.
Hey?
Age and maturity.
Oh, no, but he's been for a
Yeah.
long time. He's 39 now, but he hasn't been
No.
the firecracker for...
First game on the Grand Slam,
When
was
he
quiet,
was
man.
younger.
Hey?
He was quiet on the first game.
That's
on
what
the
I mean.
Grand
So
Slam,
for as
man.
long as he's been on the world stage,
He never lost
he's
it.
been that humble guy.
No.
He lost it a few times, but
No.
because it was bad umpiring.
Probably not as
but
many
he's
as most.
never lost it.
So what I'm saying is he should be a great example, for all the parents out there who don't want their kids throwing tennis rackets, he's the guy they go to. And yet somehow coming through, I mean, how old's Kyrgios? 22?
12?
12, yeah, that's his shoe size and his IQ. But how's his,
Unfortunately, that's the
you would
sort of
hope that could have been his legacy, but it hasn't been.
It's unfortunate the rock star
But you
mentality.
don't have to go
versus that.
far. I mean, we what is it? The end of May Tomic just got thrown out by a qualifier.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It was just a qualifying game for Roland Garros. He didn't even make it.
Yeah.
And you look at, I think...
Djokovic has been the number one for longer than Federer was now, but Djokovic used to quit every game that he was losing because he'd fake injuries and do all sorts of
he
stuff.
had celiac.
Yeah, he's full of shit.
I think that there's an issue that we have with this kind of tennis that we have for the moment. My daughters, they go to play at UTR level, and they were shocked the first time they played because they saw boys throwing rackets, having a tantrum. Someone cried playing against Zara. It shocked her. It's like, oh, what happened here? What do I do?
Zara can be brutal.
Or no, Zoe was brutal. Or someone would do a scream because you stuffed off your ball. You know, and I went to the organizer. I said, guys, you want the right kids to come out from here. This is when you need to have an umpire. This is when you have an umpire who says, sorry, disqualified. Sorry, you lost the point. Don't think that because they're 13, we can allow them to do all of this stuff until they're 18, 19. It's too late to fix it. You know, let's teach these kids how to focus on their tennis, not on how loud they can be.
I think then, though, and this has opened up a whole other can of worms, mate, is the people who should be getting disqualified and sent home are the parents.
I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
It comes down to the parenting, I believe, in a lot of that. I used to watch the game of Sebastian's the other day, and he threw his hat on the ground. After the game, I said, mate, you played a lot of good tennis, but one shot ruined the whole day. You acting like that, throwing your hat on the ground, everyone saw it because you're upset with yourself. Keep it to yourself, move on, use that as your
How many of those kids do you reckon would act like that if their parents weren't watching?
No, some of those kids, they correct their parents. I mean, Tsitsipas almost broke his racket on his father's.
Yeah.
So some of those kids do correct their parents on court.
Yeah, how many would act like that?
Sebastian's bigger than me now too. So.
How many would act like that, though, if their parents weren't there watching?
You're right, Seth. You're right.
Because of the parents, the pressure of the parents. I mean, I've been there on both
So you
sides.
think the parents are pushing that performance?
They're
creating that performance?
They're creating that. What's going on at home if they lose, right?
Yeah, okay.
What's going on?
Has anyone read the Jelena Dokic book?
Yeah, what's going on if they lose? What pressure's on them at home to
Really?
win?
Yeah, good point,
How
mate.
she was abused
Good
by
point,
her
good point.
dad. And
Good point.
I was, my
her dad was probably trying to emulate Serena Williams' dad in Venice, but he's gone overboard maybe because he's got a temper issue.
my own experience, and
You played pretty
high level
competitive
tennis
right?
when I was very young, but I was under pressure to perform, and if I lost, it wasn't a good car ride home, but I also got dragged off the court for throwing my tennis racket, never to play again. So literally in the middle of a
I'm gonna
doubles
ask you,
match.
that was your mum, right?
That was mum, but it was the same, and mum doesn't listen, so it's okay. The same pressure to perform, the same car ride home was also my mother and my father. So I was in the middle where if I did the wrong thing on the court, I was in trouble, but if I lost, I was in trouble. So, and I wonder with these kids that are carrying on, how much of that is
The parents.
related to who's sitting on the
I
sidelines.
understand the split personality issue.
Mate, I still remember my doubles partner sitting there, who went on to play in the Australian Open, mind you, going, we're in the middle of a game and I've been dragged off the court, never to play again. Dane Fernandez was his name.
That was tough.
But yeah, I mean, we talk about what's coming through, and I you know where the blame starts because the kids don't learn those behaviours on their own.
It's the same as football, right? It's the same as football. I mean, you tell a story, your team's playing against another team and they're playing dirty. And how old were they? Like 8-year-olds or something.
Under nines
Last year. And
parents were clapping.
And that's exactly right. And it leads from home. What are they getting told? What are they being taught? And mate, I think the parents need to have
There's a kid on the weekend dropping all sorts of F-bombs with M-words in front of him.
Yeah,
Isaac
anyway.
comes off and goes, what do I do, Dad? I said, whack him.
Yeah, good parenting.
Good one, Cam.
Tackle harder.
Very, very, very good pick, Roger
Good pick.
Federer.
I like that.
Very good pick. And maybe a stoic.
Yeah.
Maybe
It'd be interesting to do it if we're still doing this podcast in 30 years' time to see where he's gone, further on down the track, because everyone else we've looked at, we've talked a lot today about his sporting performance, his sporting attributes, but I want to see what happens when he leaves the...
Well, if he is the stoic we think he is, he would not want the limelight. He will be working behind the scene.
I get that feeling. I get the feeling he'll fade away.
I truly do. I think that's where he'll be. He'll be behind there helping people quietly, not wanting any of the kudos to go out there and win.
No, I still think he would want the kudos. It's because here's two things I want to ask you. He's well paid by Nike, and then he goes and leaves Nike for Uniqlo, so Nike took him to court. What that for? What's that? Some of these players measure themselves by the kudos they get.
When I say kudos, I mean by the limelight of the other player. When I said that, by the kudos of I helped him win.
Okay, now, since you guys know a lot about him, I'm going to ask you one last thing.
I didn't know what I watched in the last couple of days.
That trick shot where he's hitting that can of that guy's head.
I never saw that.
Is it real or is it?
Oh, I never saw that. I don't know what you're talking about.
Trick kind of video. You've seen it?
I haven't seen it.
Bring it up.
You haven't seen it?
Is this the same one as like Becker's kicking the soccer ball into the bin on the beach?
Yeah.
Same sort of thing?
Yeah.
I didn't see it, but
Put this on your head, Chris. I'll see if I can throw something.
you're going to try and kick it off? You're going to try and do...
I just want to ask. Anyway, good pick.
Well
Thanks
done.
very much. Let's talk.
Awesome.